The NFL draft combine is underway, and yesterday we witnessed some really good performances from defensive linemen and linebackers. And that's what we're going to be talking about on today's episode. Who stood out in the defensive line and edge group? Who stood out during the linebackers period? Y'all know we're going to talk about it, break it all down right after this.
Welcome to your number one spot for all NFL news and content, NFL Central.
What's going on, football fans? Welcome back into another episode of NFL Central, your number one spot for everything NFL. I'm your host here, Bobby, and I am bringing you the latest around the NFL. So go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe to the channel to join the NFL Central family. We love football over here. We root for who we root for, but we also love football over here. It's the greatest sport in the world. Duh. But nonetheless, the NFL Combine has started. We got defensive backs and tight ends coming up later today. But yesterday, I spent some time watching the defensive linemen, like your D tackles and your edge rushers, go out there and put on some performances. Alongside, right after that period wrapped up, we seen some really outstanding performances from our linebackers. So I'm not going to hold you any longer. We're going to get right into some of the people that I believe stood out right away when it came to how they performed at the combine. The first person on my list, I'm going to go with defensive tackle Zane Durant out of Penn State. He had the fastest 40 amongst his group. This man ran a 40 at 4.75. That was a lot faster than some of the contemporaries that he'll potentially be facing on Sunday, and that is Patrick Mahomes and Dak Prescott, as a big fella doing that at 290 pounds. Now, when we talk about some of the other standout things that he did, he had a 1.66 seconds, 10-yard split, and has a 33-inch vertical that stood out amongst his peers. And from just watching it, he looked really smooth out there. Looked like he can play with some fire if that's something that can translate to the actual football field. This guy looks like he could potentially be moving up in the draft. Right now, he was projected to be a third-round pick or a day 3 pick, I should say, but some evaluators have him potentially moving up into the second and the third round. The next guy that stood out to me was edge David Bailey out of Texas Tech. Had a 4.5 40-yard dash, 1.62 10-yard split, and had a 35-inch vertical, pretty much just confirming what everybody already knew with him coming out of Texas Tech, and that is supplanting himself within a top 5 selection. I would imagine he'll be going quickly or gone quickly once the NFL draft rolls around in April. The next guy that stood out to me is Caleb Proctor out of Southeastern Louisiana. He's a defensive tackle that ran a 4.79 40-yard dash, 1.68 10-yard split, and has a 33-inch vertical. He is projected to go in the 5th round right now as it currently stands, but that workout that he put on, hey, it could potentially entice some people to take him ahead of the 5th round. And those will wrap up who I believe stood out the most and when amongst their position groups, and that's the defensive tackles and the edges. And I believe that a lot of these guys, when you're looking at the workout, how well can you keep your footing on the slippery turf in Lucas Oil Stadium? It was crazy how so many guys were slipping out there. Those guys that we just mentioned look really smooth out there. They did their workouts in a really good, productive way, at least in my eyes. You let me know in your eyes which defensive tackles or edges that might not have a lot of notoriety stood out the most to you, because there were some guys that I was honestly disappointed in, and that was Caden McDonald. Look a little slow out there. He is a big fella, though, so I will say that, but he looked a little slow. did not look the cleanest during some of his workouts, and it was a little underwhelming for me. And I was so upset I didn't really get to see Peter Woods. He did not test on a lot of stuff, but nonetheless, hey, he did some measurable stuff, but didn't really test in a lot of areas. Look out for all these guys to go out there and put on at their respective pro days. So we'll just move on. Now let's talk about the linebacker group. The linebacker group, hey, man, some really good athletes out there, some really good performances, some a little underwhelming, but nonetheless, let's talk about it. The first one on my list is the obvious. You have to go out there and mention Sonny Styles out of Ohio State, bro. He just put on a miraculous performance when it came to the NFL scouting combine for a 43-inch vertical, a 4.46 40-yard dash that is up there with guys like Calvin Johnson. He's projected to go at a top 10. Man, he was fast, fluid, smooth. He slipped a couple times, but the crazy thing is the athleticism of this man allowed him to still finish reps at the highest level. It's crazy. He had a 10-yard split of 1.56, which was first, and he's projected to go in between the top 10, well, from that 10 spot on to the 16 spot. But when watching a performance like this, and some people having the mindset of, hey, maybe this is a linebacker that could potentially smooth positions to edge, or so on and so forth. I even heard some people say some other stuff like you can move him at safety. I'm like, nah, we ain't doing that. It's either linebacker or edge, and we'll figure it out. But he's projected to go to the Cowboys or the Jets. And if you're those two teams, you will be happy, at least in my evaluation, to have a linebacker or slash edge like a Sonny Styles. The next person that stood out to me is Anthony Hill Jr., out of Texas, linebacker there. He has edge rush experience, a 37-inch vertical, 4.51 40-yard dash, 1.58 10-yard split. He's projected to go in the early second round to the Vikings, but with the way that he performed in this year's scouting combine, it looked like he could potentially be moving up, but it's still not a bad thing to be selected early in the second round either. Another guy that stood out to me, and the last and final guy for the linebacker group, I'm going to go with Jacob Rodriguez out of Texas Tech. And the reason he stood out to me is because when you watch the tape, you say, hey, this guy's a tackling machine. He can move around. He's always around the football. But it had me questioning a little bit his athleticism. I'll be honest. I'm not going to sit here and act like, I had it all down in the written down and noted for him to be a guy that was, really, really athletic. I would say that. But he showed his athleticism at the NFL scouting combine, showed why he was one of the better linebackers to come out of Texas Tech. And he had a 38-inch vertical, 4.57 40-yard dash, 1.60 10-yard split. Right now, he's projected to go to the mid-second round. And I seen some people say he was a third rounder. I think he has the potential to move up simply because now you have the confirmation of his athleticism. Now you can look to some of the other things and go back and look at the college tape and say 128 tackles, 4 interceptions, 7 forced fumbles. Now we have confirmation that he has that athleticism, and his pro day is going to roll around, so he has more time to prepare. I believe he'll be an early second round pick, but we shall see what happens. And again, we have the defensive backs and the tight ends coming up later today, so we'll definitely keep you all informed on that. If I missed anybody on today's episode, let me know in your mind and your evaluation who stood out to you, who performance was clean, who performance was not so clean. Because the guy that was a little disappointing to me was Kyle Lewis, linebacker out of Pitt. I know on the football field, he has that, electrifying type of style of play. But when it was time to watch the workouts, wasn't the cleanest. He ran a little slower than what I thought he was going to run. But hey, we continue to move on. We continue to break it all down. But hey, let me know your thoughts and everything down in the comment box below. I'm not going to hold you all any more longer. We appreciate y'all. Make sure you chime in into the discussion. Hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. And y'all already know I'm gonna catch y'all on the next one for sure. Peace.
This has been a presentation of the Breaks